I'm telling you, the people who wind up like Mr. Williams are few and far in between. Get your education. What do I tell you guys? What do I tell every one of you guys? Build your education, build your financial future, build your relationships with your woman, with your family, with your mom, with your brother, with your sister, and build those relationships. You got people dragging you down. You have to look over your shoulder because you just did something that the police are going to come. Don't be that guy, and idolizing drill and the things that they do in drill and just the whole gangster culture and lifestyle, it isn't safe for you. It just isn't. The prosecutor was asking for 45 years, 25 years in, 20 years on probation, and with all these conditions. But the problem is that you have a situation where just hours earlier, she was willing to give him just probation. How do you square that?
The recommendation that the state previously made prior to us reaching this point was made with the hope that Mr. Williams would agree to certain special conditions of probation that we asked.
He entered into a nolo contendere plea and a non-negotiated plea. What is a non-negotiated plea? That's where you don't have any agreement with the prosecutor except for the things that you're pleading guilty to, and it's an open sentence. So you can ask for whatever you're going to ask for. The prosecution's going to ask for whatever they're going to ask for.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's going to react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your personal board-certified criminal defense lawyer, here with an update on the YSL breaking news with our content genius. The breaking news is that YSL, or Young Thug, Jeffrey Williams, has taken a deal. He has pled guilty to a bunch of stuff, and we're going to get into that. But before we do, guess what this is brought to you by? Our loyal sponsor. Say hello to eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to remotely, because it's remote, you do it on your computer, but to get any legal form that you need, whether it's power of attorney or if you need to reestablish yourself out in the market because your grandma's going to be rapping and you need contracts, well, you need a business agreement, you need a bill of sale because you're going to sell some things in order to pay for your microphones and all that kind of stuff because your grandma is rapping in her basement, but she needs to get out there. So you go to eForms.com. Or if your grandma's delusional and she thinks she's going to rap, well, she needs a power of attorney, so you need to take care of her. Anyway, go to eForms.com, a very effective way to stay out of court or to win when you get there because the documents don't lie. eForms.com. Christmas is just around the corner, and if you don't have your CLR sweatshirt, if you're not sporting that sweatshirt or your hoodie or your hat or whatever, something's wrong with you. So make sure you go to clrbrucerivers.com. Okay, now Young Thug, Jeffrey Williams, he turned down a deal earlier today with an agreement with the prosecutor that would allow him to be released today with 15 years of probation. This is according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It would have been, and then so he rejected the deal because he didn't like the conditions of probation. I think it was because he wanted to be able to still associate with some of the people he was making music with. And some of those people, the state was saying are gang members. And so you can't have any contact with gang members. So he rejected that. But in late breaking news, just off the presses, he entered into a nolo contendere plea and a non-negotiated plea. What is a non-negotiated plea? That's where you don't have any agreement with the prosecutor except for the things that you're pleading guilty to, and it's an open sentence. So you can ask for whatever you're going to ask for. The prosecution's going to ask for whatever they're going to ask for. But here's what I don't like about the prosecution in this case. You got a straight plea. On the one hand, they were willing to let you walk free. On the other hand, now they're asking for 40 years, 15 years of probation. 25 years in custody and 20 years probation. So how is it that you, on the one hand, you say, oh, this guy's such a danger, but I'm going to let him go free if he does exactly what I say. Otherwise, we're going to ask for 40 years, 45 years. That's ridiculous. And I think the judge saw through this. So, but this plea comes on the heels of 3 other pleas that went down this week in this case. This week, the judge approved of plea deals for 3 of them. Quamarvius, right? Quamarvius Nichols, 29 years old. Marquavius Huey, 28 years old. And Rodalius Ryan, 18 years old. One of them's already serving a life sentence for murder, and he got 10 years. The other 2 were time served. So one of the things that you look for in sentencing is you want to avoid disparities in sentencing. So even though he's at the top of the list, for the indictment, how do you let other people go free and give such lenient sentences? But at the same time, you're asking for 45 years, So these men all face multiple counts of various racketeering and gang-related charges, each potentially carrying a prison sentence of 5 to 20 years, with all of them agreeing to plead guilty to racketeering conspiracy, with Huey also pleading guilty to other reduced charges. They accepted more lenient prison sentences with probation and time served. Ryan, however, will remain in prison on a life sentence for 2019 murder, but his 10-year prison sentence in the RICO case has been commuted to time served. So what does that mean for Thug, for Mr. Williams? Well, he pled guilty to count 1, nolo contendere. That means no contest. It means you don't agree with it. You're not saying that you're guilty, but, you're just letting the conviction stand. 20 years, commuted to 5, served 15 on probation, $25,000 fine. Count 2, 5 years consecutive. Count 58, let's see, count 7, 8, 15, 9, 60, 61, 62. So basically 6 other counts that related to either firearms or gang-related charges. So let's kind of look and see how the prosecutor came off. So we're not going to, there's 2 parts to a guilty plea. The first part is a waiver of your constitutional rights. We're not going to watch that because it's kind of boring. You have the right to a trial, blah, 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 and you waive all your constitutional rights. Then the second part is a factual basis. Now, the factual basis is you usually ask the defendant questions. Is it true that on this date this happened? But in this case, since it's a nolo contendere plea, the prosecution gets up and says their piece, and then the defense gets up and says their piece.
Agreed to certain special conditions of probation that we asked him to adhere to, and that he would take ownership and responsibility for being the leader of YSL. Given that those negotiations have broken down, we are asking that the court sentence Mr. Williams as we have asked earlier. And prior to the court imposing a sentence, we would ask that Ms. Shawana Edmonds, who is the mother of Mr. Thomas.
So he entered a plea, and basically what she was asking for are 2 things. One, the death of Thomas, that was part of this case, but they dismissed the murder charge against not just Thug, but other people. And so she wants the family member of Thomas to give an impact statement, and the judge denies that. And the prosecutor was asking for 45 years, 25 years in, 20 years on probation, and with all these conditions. But the problem is that you have a situation where just hours earlier, she was willing to give him just probation. How do you square that? You don't have any credibility with the court when you do that. All right, let's see what Thug's lawyer was asking for in his solicitation or recitation.
Many pieces of evidence, and then took liberty that is the state's theory. Mr. Williams has tendered a nolo contendere plea to the RICO conspiracy count. I can see that.
Okay. All right, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. And Your Honor, I'll answer any of your questions, but the point I'm trying to make is 45 years to serve 25 years in prison, when just this morning it was a probationary offer. It was a probationary offer. The state knows.
That is not lost on the court. A probationary, you go from 0 to you got to serve 25 years in prison. How do you do that?
But they want to control. They have this theory of music, and they want to stop Mr. Williams from making music, from entertaining, just stop his life. That's just not right. And it's wrong of the district attorney in Fulton County to do that. If they offer probation, then he's not a 45 to serve 25 years in custody type of person, and he's certainly not the person that the state has stated in front of the court. What we're asking, Your Honor, on count 1, which is the RICO count, to accept the nolo contendere plea. Please sentence Mr. Williams to 20 years to serve 5 years in prison commuted to time served. Mr. Williams has served, as I said, 22.5 years. On count 56, Your Honor, that's the leadership of a gang, nolo plea, 20 years to serve 5 years commuted to time served, consecutive to all other counts. On count 57, which is a gang count, Your Honor, not a leader, guilty plea, 20 years to serve 5 years commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. With regard to count 58, which is possession of, I believe it is marijuana with intent to distribute, 10-year sentence on probation, concurrent with count 1. On count 59, which is violation Georgia Controlled Substance Act, possession of codeine with intent to distribute, 5 years on probation, concurrent with count 1. On count 59, Your Honor, which is violation Georgia Controlled Substance Act, possession of cocaine, 3 years on probation, concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years of probation. It's a firearm count, consecutive to the other counts, consecutive to before count 56. And then count 62, 10 years to serve commuted to time served. That should be a total sentence, Your Honor, that we are respectfully requesting the court to consider. I believe it's 45 years to serve 5 years in prison, commuted to time served, 40 years on probation, credit for the time already served and commuted time served. As I said, after 3 years of probation, the probation becomes non-reporting, and after successful completion of 10 years on probation, the balance of the sentence be terminated. Mr. Williams asked the court for house arrest for 3 years as part of the sentence, but house arrest specifically defined that Mr. Williams will be in his home.
So he's asking for house arrest for 3 years. He's asking for 40 years of probation to be terminated after 10 if he successfully completes probation. That's common. And now let's fast forward to see what the judge actually does here, because I find the judge's remarks quite something.
I did more than anybody ever did from my side, you know? But I understand, you know, rap lyrics. I understand how it could be twisted. I understand what it could do to the mind of people. I understand all that, and I promise you I'm 100% changing that. You know, it's just, I'm older, I'm grown now, you know, and it's just like, I'm smarter, it's more things to rap about. Like, I've experienced a lot of good things. I experienced more bad things, but I experienced a lot of good things too. And anyway, I can go forever. Well,
I appreciate it. And I appreciate that you do realize how much of an impact you have on people. I mean, it's past your neighborhood. It's worldwide, especially young people. And having come up from where you came up from and living.
One of the things the judge does is gives kind of a speech, you know, because it's not just for the person that's standing in front of you. It's for the general public as well. And so they give kind of a moralistic, you know, you need to be a better person, you need to do this and that.
In and around that, you know that gangs are damaging to our community, and it may be that a whole lot of rap music and the rap industry is, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a modern day version of kind of WWE wrestling that used to be on television, where people would just get up and posture and act like they hated each other. And it may be that that's a lot of what.
So the judge seems really fucking naive here, honestly, when she sits there and talks about WWE, World Wide Wrestling, you know, or WWF or whatever the hell it's called. Like, this is fake. You know, I mean, so one of the things that the defense lawyer brought up was that the rap battles, and it's more like the WWE, you know, the worldwide. One of the things the defense lawyer brought up was that this is, you know, these rap battles, the lyrics, you know, and the culture, it's just like WWE, you know, like the wrestling, you know, which is just bullshit because, you know, we see people getting shot up. Lil Wayne's bus got shot up, riddled with bullets. We say Julio Fulio. I mean, and then they go back and forth with these diss tracks, and so the judge is talking about this as though it's, you know, it's not real, and it's just, we all know better, don't we?
In the music industry with rap, but whether it is fake,
It ain't just rap. It's drill, and you know, and there's a big difference between just regular rap and drill.
whether it is fake or not, it has tremendous impact on kids and young people who think, this is cool, this is what I want to do, look at him, he's a millionaire, I can do that by being, you know, a gangster in the streets. And that's not true. What you're likely to have happen to you if you're a gangster in the streets is you get shot, you get killed, or you get thrown in prison.
Facts. Straight up facts. I'm telling you, you know, the people who wind up like Mr. Williams are few and far fucking between. You know, get your education. What do I tell you guys? What do I tell every one of you guys? Build your education, build your financial future, build your relationships with your woman, with your family, with your mom, with your brother, with your sister, and build those relationships. You got people dragging you down. You have to look over your shoulder because you just did something that the police are going to come. Don't be that guy, you know, and idolizing drill and the things that they do in drill and just the whole gangster culture and lifestyle, you know, it isn't safe for you. It just isn't.
And those are, you know, by far the most likely outcomes. And, you know, you've been in here watching the trial, and you've seen the pictures of Mr. Ryan posing with a gun as big as he is at 15 years old and going out and shooting and killing another teenager. And that's what gangs do, and that's unfortunately a lot of what rap music does.
Let's just make sure that she knows that isn't what rap does. Maybe drill, but not rap in general. I think that's a broad brush.
And if you are a modern day John Lennon, you know, I mean, he might have rapped too in this day and age. I don't know, but I know you're talented, and even if you choose to continue to rap, you need to try to use your influence to let kids know that that is not the way to go, and that there are ways out of poverty besides hooking up with the powerful guy at the end of the street selling drugs.
That powerful guy at the end of the street is really not that powerful. And why not? Because guess what? The government's made of fucking snitches. And I guarantee you that did not have, you know, the fact that 3 other people took a deal that may have included cooperation had a definite impact on whether Thug was going to take a deal. And so that powerful guy who's driving the tricked out Cutlass down the road, you know, and I'm telling you, that's, what do I call that? You guys know what I call that. Short money. You know, that's just short money. That's, I mean, yeah, you might be flush right now, but if you can't keep it, and if it's going to go through your fingers like that, it's not worth, you know, the risk that you have to go through to get it.
And, you know, I know that happens for protection sometimes, but a much better way would be getting an education and setting, you know, hanging around with people who set a good example. And you be one of those people that sets a good example. I mean, all right, so that's my high horse on that. I could also go.
And that wasn't that long of a speech by a judge. You know, this was how long of a trial? He's been in there 2.5 fucking years. 2.5 years. Since May of 2022.
But I want you to try to be more of the solution and less of the problem. All right? All right. So it is not lost on the court that the state, had they been able to come to agreement on certain special conditions, was willing to entirely dismiss the RICO count, was willing to entirely dismiss one of the gang counts, and was willing to entirely dismiss this, you know, machine gun count. Was willing to give a sentence that permitted Mr. Williams to walk out of the door today.
I mean, how do you go from you can go home now to you're going to do 25 years in prison, then 15 or 20 years on probation? How do you square that? You know, if it's that much of a fucking danger, it's, you know, before you walked into court today, how is it, you know, convenient for you? It just doesn't square.
And therefore does not seem to be particularly worried that Mr. Williams, if on the streets, would be a danger to society. I'm taking that into consideration in crafting my sentence. And in permitting a NOLO plea to the RICO count and one of the 2 gang counts, I would not be permitting the NOLO to the one if you were not pleading guilty to at least one of them. But you are.
And a judge can blow up a plea. You know, if all of a sudden you're not taking responsibility or you're not really pleading guilty, or if the deal is just, you know, a shitty deal, the judge doesn't have to accept the plea. Judge is going to say, you know what, we're going to see what the jury says.
A factual basis for the counts that you are pleading guilty to. I find there to be a factual basis for those counts, and for the remaining counts with which you are charged, I am going to impose a sentence, and I've taken a little bit of the suggested special conditions from the defense and a little bit of the special conditions suggested by the prosecution. On count 1, the court sentence is 20 years to serve 5 years, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years to be probated, and a $25,000 fine. On count 2, the sentence is 5 years to serve, commuted to time served. That's the minimum sentence that's permitted on that count. It is required to be run consecutively. I'm going to run it consecutive to count 1, but I am going to backload. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not.
So what she means by backload is you're going to be on probation for X amount of time, and in this case, it's going to be 15 years. I'm not going to make you do that time now. I'm going to make you do that time, that consecutive time. So sentences can be concurrent or consecutive. Concurrent is meaning you do it at the same time. If I got 2 counts to do concurrent, it's 5 years at the same time. You know, if I do have 2 5-year terms consecutive, that's 10 years, 5 one after the other. So you have to do this other 5 years, but I'm going to load it on the back end. And as long as you're doing okay on probation, you successfully complete probation, that 5 years goes away.
Commuted. That is 5 years to serve, and it's going to be run consecutively to count one, backloaded, by which I mean after you serve your 15 years of probation, if you have been successful on that probation, and I sincerely hope that you are, then at the end of that 15 years, I will commute the entire rest of any service portion of your sentence to time served. So I'll get to the end of it and give you the total sentence, but I'm also going to impose a $15,000 fine with regard to that count. Count 57, 20 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years probated, concurrent with count 1. Count 58, 10 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, balance probated, concurrent with count 1. 59, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. 60, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years to serve, that is required to be also a consecutive sentence, so that's going to be run consecutively to count 56 and backloaded. Count 62, 10 years to serve, also required to be served consecutively, that's going to be consecutive to count 61, also backloaded.
So that's 25 years that's backloaded. So he's not out of the woods quite yet. So if he screws up on probation, he can do, time on the stuff that's been probated, in other words, probationary sentence, because you have time hanging over your head on these probated sentences. And then you're going to have to do this other 25 years after you're done with that other time. So that he's got an incentive to really watch his P's and Q's, for lack of a better word.
So essentially, the total sentence is 40 years to serve the first 5 years in prison, but commuted to the time that you have already served, followed by 15 years on probation, followed then by backloaded 20 years, which can be served in custody and will be served in custody if you are not successful on your probation. If you are successful in completing your 15 years probation, that will be commuted to time served.
So essentially, on probation for 15 years, we got time on those counts that are being probated. In other words, you're on probation, but on those, there's time hanging over your head. So when you have 5 years on a 20-year sentence, credit time served, but the rest to be probated, that means 15 years on count 1 that's probated. You screw up on probation, you can get you can do that 15 years. But on top of that, you're going to do that 20 years that she's backloading. Makes sense?
You are to remain on reporting status for the first half of your probation, active reporting for the first 7.5 years of your probation, and that is...
So that means you're on supervised probation for the first half of your probation. So in other words, you got to call in, you got to piss test, you got to do all kinds of stuff that your probation officer asks you, community service, and she's going to load them up with all kinds of conditions.
Pursuant to OCGA 17-10-1, subsection 2, A2A. And Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, in order to keep him on reporting status, there needs to be good cause shown. We all concede that good cause is shown here?
Stipulate.
All right, I appreciate that. Special conditions of your probation.
What good cause? What do they mean?
Can I have a second, Your Honor?
Sure.
Let the judge. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. You had enough time to talk with your attorneys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, special conditions of your probation. After 48 hours from your release, you are to stay away from the metro Atlanta area and that's defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. It may change, but
That is not a common condition that you stay out of a particular area, but it is in this case because it was such a infiltrated gang
figure
type
out
case.
what that is. For the first 10 years of your probation, subject to the following exceptions, you are permitted to be in the metro Atlanta area to attend any wedding, funeral, or graduation from high school, college, or graduate school of any of your immediate family members. And immediate family members is defined the same way that you all.
So, without going through all the conditions, I'll just kind of briefly summarize. When you're on probation, the court can impose conditions of your probation. And one of the things she's 4 times a year, he's got to do anti-gun, anti-gang presentations, either to a school or a benefit concert, that kind of thing. And that can satisfy his community service. There's no contact with gang members except for his brother, who they conceded was a gang member, or people that he's got a contractual obligation, like people that he's making music with. And I think that was the big stickler, my guess, is on the probationary things that they had, why they couldn't come to a deal. And and here's the kicker: no promotion of gang activity or gang speech or anything that has to do with gangs. This may really impact the way he has his music done in the future. But I guarantee you he's going to be singing about being in a jail cell. Because what do you think he knows about right now? That's fresh in his mind, I guess. Guarantee you that's going to be in some of his future music. Random drug testing, waiver of searching his person or his premises for drugs. That's standard conditions. But the judge didn't impose some of the conditions that his own lawyer asked for, like home monitoring. No home monitoring was ordered. So really good day for the defense here. I think he got pretty much everything he wanted. No further prison time or jail time as long as he keeps his nose clean. Otherwise, he's looking at 40 plus years. 40 plus years. Can you imagine? I mean, how did the state go from 45 years to probation? It just seems to me that the state's case crumbled out from underneath it. So when you look at the sentence overall, for a 32, 33-year-old man to get a 40-year sentence, that's essentially a life sentence. So it is, even though he's walking out today, it isn't like he's free. The government still has a hold on him. He's going to be on probation for 15 years. 7.5 is going to be supervised. 7.5 is going to be unsupervised. He can still move out to California. He can still perform and do whatever he's supposed to do, but he's going to have to be sober. How fucking hard is it for these guys to be sober? Smoking weed is like in some people's DNA, and weed is so popular. And try to go to a concert and not smell some weed. Honestly. So you're going to have that. My guess he's probably going to have a doctor prescribe it for him because if a doctor prescribes it, you're going to be okay. So he's going to have to be sober. He's going to have to be law-abiding. He can't be with any gang members unless they're in the exception. And he's going to have some limitations on his actual freedom, where he can go and when he can go there. So this is not just he walks, and if he screws up at all, he can go to prison for an awfully long time. So that's our update on the breaking news that Young Thug took a deal. He's been sentenced today. And we'll see you next time here at Criminal Lawyer Reacts. And make sure you go to CLRBruceRivers.com, say hello to Tony and anybody else that's responsible for the content that's created there. You can get whatever merch. Christmas is just around the corner. And if you don't have your CLR sweatshirt, if you're not sporting that sweatshirt or your hoodie or your hat or whatever, something's wrong with you. So make sure you go to CLRBruceRivers.com. See you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, sign up for Patreon, and we'll see you next time on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, police is at my god.